Welcome to Connecting You, the podcast where we explore the journey of connecting to God, yourself, and others. I'm your host, Mayra Richards, founder of Remain Connected Counseling. And joining me is our marketing director, Emily Robinson. At Connecting You, we believe that each one of us is in a unique journey, seeking connection and belonging in a world that often feels disconnected. So, wherever you are in your journey, we invite you to join us as we explore what it means to remain connected to God, to yourself, and to others. Welcome to Connecting You, where you belong.
So we really wanted to make this bonus episode. It's going to be about Love is Blind. It's a Netflix show that is sweeping the country because this new season 6 is a little bit crazy, and we've had people reach out, particularly her friend Christina, saying that she really wanted us to delve into this media occurrence because the show is different, wouldn't you say?
Is it really sweeping the country?
Yeah, it's like number one. It's like
that is wild.
Yes, that's interesting in itself that we're so nosy that we want to know what happens.
Right, about people's relationship that we don't know.
We have no idea who they are.
We're never going to see them.
Yeah. So I will preface saying that I have never watched reality TV. I was not into the Kardashians. I have never watched The Bachelor, all these things that I've always heard people talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I was apprehensive to watch this, and I'll explain the premise of the show a little bit, which is that they find however many couples, maybe 12 pairs of people. So let's say it's 12 women and 12 men, a big group. And then these people have never met each other. They have never seen each other. And they enter the experiment. So in the experiment, it's this weirdly constructed room where there's a wall between you and the other person. So you can't see what they look like. And you go on dates every day, all day for, I think it's about 2 weeks. It's very quick.
They call them pods.
Yeah. So there you have your pod and the man has his pod, and you go on dates with all the men who are on the show, and you don't know what they look like.
So sort of like speed dating.
Yeah.
Except for the speed part.
Well, yeah, you can talk to them all day if you want.
Yeah.
They don't limit that whatsoever. But the question, is love blind, right? The show is called Love is Blind. So can you fall in love with somebody without meeting them in person, without seeing them? I would assume yes, because I've watched women get catfished and never FaceTime people who are in different countries and fall in love.
That's what Gavin said.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. But for the purpose of the experiment, we're going to assume that it's a valid question. And then once you propose, this is the crazy part. So after 2 weeks, you can either leave the show or you can propose to one of the women. And upon that proposal, you can now meet in person and you can see what they look like. And after that, it's about 4 weeks of in-person living together, going on vacation together, and, seeing in the real world with our friends, with our family, with being able to see each other in person. Does this work out? And then at the end, they get married.
Yes, I think it's like a month and a half, right? Because it's it's 2 weeks and
it's about 2.5 weeks of dating, and then they fall in love or they don't fall in love, supposedly. And then 4 weeks of in-person contact, living together.
Does that include the honeymoon phase?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So it's about a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Which some people have gotten married in 3 months.
Some people have gotten married in 3 days, but
that's true.
I'm not questioning that, but
yeah.
I mean, would you let people? I mean, would you do this?
Would I do this if I were single?
Yeah, if you were at the end of the rope, if you're 30,
I was desperate enough.
You're 30 years old, life's downhill from there.
That. I am 66. 30 is not old. I know you're 23 and you think 30 is old. It's not old.
You said you were 66. I think you meant 36.
No, I mean, if I were like older, way older.
Like 40.
Maybe 50. Maybe if I were 50. If I were 50, I would do it.
Okay.
Yes, I would do it. I want to say, for my own sanity, that I do not recommend anyone watching the show. If you haven't seen it, just don't worry about it.
It does pull you in a certain sense, but I don't like it as a show.
I like it. I do like it. I think in order to keep purity eyes, don't watch the
show.
Yeah. Anyway.
Some of them are Christian.
Yeah, I found that interesting. They didn't go very far. I don't even remember their names. It was Kenneth and somebody else.
Mm-hmm. They broke up quite early.
Yeah. But I do think that they broke up because he was addicted to his phone. But
I think they broke up because the experiment was not for them. They were not able to buy into getting so close to each other so quickly.
I mean, you're asking, so the Christian couple, they had decided, hey, we're both Christian, we love Jesus. And then you go into, first of all, getting engaged within 2 weeks and then living together. Then going on like what they call the honeymoon phase. Right after they meet, you go on a week vacation, all expenses paid. And then you go and they put you cohabitate with the other person. So all of that, it goes against, I would say, a lot of their values.
Yeah.
And so
I think they were uncomfortable the whole time.
Sure. Yeah, I would be. I'd be like, could I get my own apartment?
Yeah, my own.
If I really wanted it to make it work. But anyway.
What's interesting about this show to me, I'm just not a reality TV person. So the premise was crazy. I was like, why are these women opening up to me who knows nothing about them? And they're showing to their credit, they're all very open people. They're all very open to sharing with you about their lives and their feelings and their thoughts. Mm-hmm. At least the women. The men, I think the men were just having fun. So that's a little bit of a side. Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. So
in a good way, that guys just, not all guys, obviously, but they just know how to have fun.
Yeah. So for context, how we view it is that the men were having a lot of fun. They weren't taking it that seriously. And the women were so emotionally invested in this process. You could tell the women were talking about, I've been waiting to be married for so long, and if I can just find someone who is right there, just as serious as me about making a marriage and making it work, I'm so ready. I have all this baggage from the past that make me less lovable or less able to find a man because I've been married in the past, I'm divorced, I have a child, so who's going to want to be a stepfather at this age? I think she was like 27 or something. And so, yeah, it's very telling that the men are not basing their worth or their happiness in this experiment working out. And the women were. This was really important to them.
Mm-hmm. It felt more like a game of being chosen, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I can get chosen, then I am lovable or I am worth it.
And chosen in front of the country.
Right.
Like everyone's going to see that I'm being paraded and chosen and loved and worthy of the love. So, the world is going to validate me.
Yes.
In being important.
Yes. Even the people that you think at the beginning that are secure or somewhat secure, mm-hmm. like AD, by the end of it, I remember she said something about like, this happens every time, I'm not worth it or something. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how did someone who presents herself
Yes.
independent, strong, secure, all of a sudden somebody tells her that they're not going to marry her, and she's just puddled and being like, I am not worth it at all. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very interesting because, I mean, it goes to show even the people or the women who present themselves as like strong-willed, I'm not going to take this, I'm not going to take that. It reminds me of, we've talked about female rappers in the past, that all of their songs are, I won't be disrespected, I'm leaving the second, you're super replaceable to me. And then those same women who are singing and preaching and supposedly empowering us to make good decisions and choosing ourselves, they stay with the men who publicly cheat on them multiple times and, devalue them and embarrass them.
Yeah.
And so it can really get anyone. It can really happen to anyone. I think perhaps the thought that I'm having now is they're trying to come across as so strong-willed because they know that they're not.
Well, they're making up for their insecurities. They're overcompensating,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I will pivot a little bit to Matthew,
Oh my gosh.
because that reminds me of him, right? Huge red
Yes.
flags of him stating from the get-go, like, hey, I'm not here to be a B-list celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nobody asked you
why you were here.
Well,
Yeah.
I doubt you'll ever be, you know what I mean? But it's like, he put out there something that nobody really cared about, but then he was like, I'm not like the other guys. He was very isolating. You just don't do that. You just don't go somewhere. And I'm like, hey, I'm the most humble person there is.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a red flag. That usually means that you probably are not. You're probably the opposite of that, I would say.
Yeah. Like, why are you choosing to talk about that? I've seen that as a red flag before. Men who will say, oh, I'm so loyal. Like, that is just nothing that you'll ever have to worry about.
Yeah.
And that has just always been how I am. Like, loyalty is so important to me and I value it a lot. At first glance, you're like, fantastic. He has my values. He is a good person, this or that. And then that falls apart because the reason he was saying that was to try to distract you or overcompensate or present himself as something that he is not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. It's hard for people to know. I mean, you want to see the best in people. You don't want to be questioning, why is he telling me that? But I guess it's a necessity. You do have to analyze to an extent or just question things.
Because dating is an interview. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're interviewing your potential partner. I think that some people see dating as like, this is the moment and I have to fall in love. And that's not true. This is the moment where you get to choose if you want the person that's sitting across from you.
And a lot of people don't do that consciously. I think a lot of people find somebody who supposedly wants to date you and you're like, fantastic, let's date. And then I'm not going to question, I'm not going to interview. What I see a lot on Love is Blind is they're not questioning, do I actually like him?
Yeah.
Would we actually be compatible together? The women are running around and competing with each other and throwing themselves at the men because, thoughtlessly. Because it's more about being chosen. It's more about being worthy or having that external validation that I'm worthy rather than, is this a smart decision for me?
Yes.
Do we make sense? Is he this? Is he that?
You have to bring logic into dating. You have to bring both. You can't just go with emotions. That's simply not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotions will lead you astray. You have to bring logic, Like, if you think that you want a big house or something, but you're dating somebody who is in high school. That's not.
That's a really bad example.
I can think
This
of
40-year-old woman and the 17-year-old boy. The only
but-
problem is that he can't buy her a house.
I don't know. But you know what I'm saying?
Say that he's like he's a starving artist that doesn't care at all about having a house.
Okay, that's way better. Thank you. Yes, he's a starving artist, and I'm like, you have to bring logic. Like, you're never gonna have a house unless you're the one that, which is fine.
You have to be prepared to provide your own expectations if it's not going the way that
Yeah, and I do think that they don't think about that. All they want is for somebody to choose them, for somebody to propose to them, because that's going to mean that they are valuable, and that's it. Even Laura and what is his name?
Jeremy.
Laura and Jeremy. She was talking about Christmas, how she hates Christmas or dislikes Christmas or something along those lines. And then Jeremy goes, well, I see my family. I see us having a Christmas morning and all that stuff, Right after that, she was like, oh, yeah, we definitely align. They were both like, yeah, we are similar. And I'm like, y'all just said the opposite things.
It's like no one's questioning.
You just said you wanted the opposite things. And then you're like, oh, yeah, we aligned on everything. And I'm like, did you not? What? Where were you? Where was I? You just bypassed what you want in order to be matched.
Which we have talked about before is just lying in order to make yourselves compatible. Yeah. Diminishing yourself, going away from yourself and your path and not being confident in your path that is right for you simply because, hey, this external love is going to make me feel that I am lovable. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot with Chelsea, which we have strong feelings about that we won't maybe we'll get into. But essentially, Chelsea is a girl on the show who struggles a lot with insecurity, and the actions of her partner pretty much dictate her emotions. They dictate how she's feeling that day, how secure she is in herself, how secure she is.
Before we go into that hole,
okay,
because that will be a hole to dig into. Before, I want to say this one thing that is going to surprise you. I do think that Clay all day was actually very honest. Mm-hmm. And it's very surprising because at first you don't like him. Like how he presents himself. He's like, I like women. I like how they look. But then he goes into saying like, hey, I do care what you look like, which is very honest. I haven't been to therapy. He said that to her, which is very honest. And he got mad at her. And he showed his true colors. Mm-hmm. He flat out showed who he was. And she still picked him. So, he was the only, that was probably his best attributes. He was Clay all day, every day.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised at all. And I didn't dislike Clay. So for context, Clay presents himself as a bit of a very suave, flirty man who's like good with women. I didn't dislike him at all. I thought he was immature.
Yeah.
And then he just...
But he
wasn't ready for this show. Yeah, he just wasn't ready to be married. We knew that the whole time. And AD knew that as well. Before she got engaged to him, she knew.
And she knew, like she said, I usually pick guys like him. I'm not going to pick him. She was going to pick Matthew, but then Matthew turned out to be a psychopath. And then she picked him because she wanted to keep going,
Yeah. No, I think that was very evident. I mean, she, for whatever reason, which is also, it's scary that she liked Matthew because we knew that Matthew was lying to these women and unstable and not a nice guy. We knew that. So her liking him was already not a good sign. But it was definitely just like, oh, the guy that I connected with more is gone. So I'm going to revert to what I know and what I think I can handle. And, throughout the show, during their engagement, you see her face. She's alarmed at the things that he says.
Yeah.
She knows that he is not mature enough and ready enough for this relationship, but she still banks on the fact that, maybe I will convince him. Maybe we will cross that line.
Well, if I convince him to actually get married, then will be worth it.
And everything will work out.
And everything will work out. And he tells her, he actually says to her, hey, what if we don't get married in his own way, but we continue dating?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, no. Like, you either marry me or you don't, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's fully honest with you about his immaturity, his fears, and you're going to give him an ultimatum? No, I like you with all your brokenness. Why would you do that? And the only thing that I could come up with was she just thought, well, if he can marry me no matter what, then that means that I'm enough.
I think that speaks back to perhaps something that a lot of women go through, which is, I'm at a point where I'm ready to be married.
Mm.
So regardless, I'm going to get married.
Yeah.
Regardless of the quality of the man that I'm with, regardless of our aspirations and our hopes and the alignment of our values, I would rather be married to somebody who is not secure within us, who is not aligning. I mean, Clay otherwise was a great guy, has his own house, has a good job, like funny, charismatic, but he just wasn't ready, and she knew that. But women have a sense of, well, because I'm ready now, it's just going to fix itself later.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't call Clay a good guy just because of the way that he was fighting. But I do think that last part of, I will fix it later. We will fix it later. We will get married and it will get better. It kind of sounds trapping. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to trap you and then
Now you're not going anywhere.
No, you're not going anywhere. We're going to make it work. And I have seen that before. If you've been one of my clients before you got married, I will let you know pretty quickly. I don't usually give direct. I'm not very direct. They say you can't be, but I will go around and be like, no.
What do you mean?
I'll just say like, hey, that just sounds like not a great idea. Or
getting married is a bad idea?
No, well, with the person that they're choosing, right? Like sometimes I'm like, are you sure? I'm going to put it out there for you. And if you're still choosing to do this, that you are going to have problems, but you're still choosing to do this. So at least you know. And they do marry the person. They come back to me years later and they're like, hey, we're having problems, and it's sad because they wanted the marriage more than they wanted
the person.
The person. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Chelsea. Chelsea's a fun one. Chelsea.
Oh gosh.
Chelsea.
Explain like briefly.
Oh, I don't even know how to explain Chelsea. Do not make me explain Chelsea. She is, I guess she is who I was 15 years ago.
I'm like, this is on tape.
I know. But
okay,
it's
explain.
True. I'm not gonna lie.
Because 15 years ago I was
15,
8 and not really analyzing you. So
yeah, 15, 17 years ago, I was around 18. And I think I've talked about my abandonment issues. I'm not really sure, but I didn't know that I was worth it. I didn't know that I was enough. I didn't know that I was loved. I didn't know that I was great. Like who I know God created me to be and who I now love.
you were not showing up as.
I was not showing up as that. So I remember in high school dating and college dating, and I would be so insecure that I would ask those questions, right? Like, do you love me? Like
Pushing
questions of creating fights. Maybe that's why I loved Chelsea and I hated Chelsea, because I was like, okay, she's also older, so you would assume that, but again,
you can never assume
cannot
that it's
assume
just
anything.
gonna
Just
grow out of it.
She's not growing out of it. You don't grow out of it. You listen to this part. You do not grow out of unhealth. You don't. You have to work through it. And she hasn't. And that is very sad. And it shows up as in the pods when they couldn't see each other. All she would do, people picked her because all she would do was laugh. Right?
Yeah,
They were
I never understood what they liked about her.
You're always lighthearted. You're always laughing. I feel like a relationship with you would be just so fun. We'd be laughing all day or whatever.
And she says, like, in the pods, you got the fun, goofy side of me. And then on the honeymoon, she says, now you got the serious side of me. Like, what do you think about that?
It's like she tricked them.
Yeah. She was like two different people. Honestly, not really, though, because we saw that she was very emotionally volatile in the pods. She was very emotionally driven and emotionally unsure of her choices, choosing between those two men. I think, so for context, Jimmy proposed to her first, and she had a better connection, in my opinion, with this other guy, I think Trevor. And Trevor asks her, funny, maybe I'm mean, but I'm looking at this as like the biggest comedy show I've ever seen in my life. I laugh out loud. So Trevor asks Chelsea, if I would have proposed to you first, do you think you would have said yes? And she doesn't answer.
She doesn't answer.
Because she would have.
She would have.
She would have said yes to whoever was extending their hand, being like, marry me.
Yeah.
Because she's so dependent on their love for her self-worth and their love for her making her day and controlling her day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so, so sad. But at the same time, I cannot stop laughing at the decisions.
Yeah, she's actually why we did the episode on expectations, because she would go into fights and pretty much be like, I need you to do this. I need you to say it like this. You have not said this
Kiss
yet.
me every 5 minutes.
Right. Well, you did not, do.
But her expectations were never going to be met. She was
by
like,
anyone.
No, it was impossible. She was like, I need to feel loved. I need you to tell me that you love me. The man is standing in front of her telling her that he loves her. He's like, I do love you. I'm very much in love with you. I'm happy with you. I'm not disappointed with you. He has way more patience than I could have had. And she's like, I need to feel loved. And I'm like, I know that you don't feel loved. Mm-hmm. You don't love yourself. Right. Nothing they do is ever going to make you feel loved. And it's just this impossible problem that I do find very frustrating, because I want her to feel better. All right, friends, that concludes the first half of our bonus episode on Love is Blind. We hope that you're enjoying our commentary and noticing how all of the dynamics from this reality TV show can actually be present in your real-life relationships. Stay tuned for Season 2 of the Connecting You podcast, which we have coming in a couple weeks. It's going to be on the inner child, so reparenting and reconnecting with your inner child.
As we wrap up today's episode, we are grateful you join us to explore what it means to remain connected to God, to yourself, and to others. To stay updated on future episodes, be sure to hit that subscribe button and connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Remain Connected. Counseling appointments can be made at RemainConnectedLLC.com. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, may you find peace in your connections and blessings in every step of your journey. Have a blessed day.